I want to thank the gentleman from New York and the other Republicans who are supporting this and thank them for their bipartisanship. To the other 90% of our friends on the other side of the aisle, holy cow, incoherence, no idea what you're talking about. Benghazi, you guys chased the former Secretary of State all over the country, spent millions of dollars. We have people scaling the Capitol, hitting the Capitol Police with lead pipes across the head, and we can't get bipartisanship. What else has to happen in this country? Cops. This is a slap in the face to every rank and file cop in the United States. If we're going to take on China, if we're going to rebuild the country, if we're going to reverse climate change, we need two political parties in this country that are both living in reality, and you ain't one of them. I yield back the balance of my time.
This is Democratic lawmaker Tim Ryan pretty much summing up the entire debacle that's become the January 6th Commission. And that's because, much like the big lie that incited the insurrection, Republicans have decided to turn a blind eye to one of the darkest days in American history, all in deference to Donald Trump. This is all part of a coordinated disinformation campaign on the right to rewrite history, absolve themselves of any guilt for the actions that culminated into the insurrection, and deny any effort to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Not only are they clearly not against the insurrection, but their efforts will unilaterally allow for it to happen again. And keep in mind, this is coming from the party responsible for the partisan dumpster fire that was the Benghazi Select Committee. Republicans held a 2.5-year investigation into Benghazi that was so brazenly partisan, Kevin McCarthy admitted on national television that the point was to hurt Hillary Clinton in the upcoming election.
Everybody thought Hillary Clinton was unbeatable, right? But we put together a Benghazi special committee, a select committee. What are her numbers today? Her numbers are dropping. Why? Because she's untrustable. But no one would have known any of that had happened had we not thought and made that happen.
He literally gave the whole ballgame away, that the intention was to crater the Democratic frontrunner's poll numbers using the Benghazi Commission as a pretext to do exactly that. And yet somehow, a January 6th commission where Republicans and Democrats have equal power, equal representation, where both sides have to sign off on subpoenas, wasn't acceptable. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. In terms of why, here's the argument we got from McConnell.
I've made the decision to oppose the House Democrats' slanted and unbalanced proposal for another commission to study the events of January the 6th. As everybody surely knows, I repeatedly made my views about the events of January the 6th very clear. I spoke clearly and left no doubt about my conclusions. Federal law enforcement have made at least 445 arrests and counting relating to crimes committed that day. Hundreds of those people have been charged. Law enforcement investigations are ongoing, and federal authorities say they expect to arrest at least 100 or so more. Bipartisan investigations are also underway and have been for months at the committee level here in the Senate. So there has been, and there will continue to be no shortage of robust investigations by two separate branches of the federal government. So, Mr. President, it's not at all clear what new facts or additional investigation yet another commission could actually lay on top of existing efforts by law enforcement and Congress.
That we shouldn't have a commission to look into the events of January 6th because there have been arrests. Right. So we'll just treat an insurrection on the US Capitol retroactively. We won't attempt to hold those accountable who incited it or figure out how to prevent it from happening again. God forbid we take a proactive approach here, so we'll just rely on the fact that arrests have been made and hope that'll do the trick. He even admits that bipartisan investigations have been underway at the committee level. Okay, so then why not give them the attention they deserve by appointing a commission that focuses on exactly this? If the events of January 6th were obviously important enough for committee-level investigations, then surely they'd be important enough for a commission whose focus and attention is exclusively on the events of January 6th, right? Unless, of course, the point is to just give the impression that's being dealt with without actually allocating the proper resources to it. But McConnell couldn't possibly want that. What makes this all the more appalling is that this is over whether to investigate events that threaten Congress itself. The mob that stormed the Capitol was looking to kill members of that very body. Members were helping barricade the doors to the chambers, they were removing their pins to better blend in, they were running through back doors to safety, there was a gallows outside. The crowd was literally chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." That is who these Republicans are protecting by virtue of opposing a commission to investigate the events of January 6th. They're protecting the very people who would have murdered their colleagues, including their own party's vice president. And it wasn't just lawmakers at risk. A police officer was killed and others came dangerously close to being killed because of the mob. And yet somehow, the Back the Blue party suddenly isn't super concerned about the same cops who they've spent years virtue signaling about. When it means nothing, when it's just words, Republicans will crow until the sun goes down about how much they support the police. But when a violent mob of their own supporters tries to murder those same cops, well, hey, we couldn't possibly do anything about it. Convenient, huh? And some of those very people even weighed in. In a surprising move, anonymous members of the Capitol Police issued a letter distributed through Congressman Jamie Raskin's office expressing their profound disappointment with McConnell and McCarthy for opposing the January 6th Commission, citing the physical trauma and mental anguish that officers endured during the insurrection. The last line of the letter is perhaps the most telling. Quote, "Unfortunately, this letter comes to you anonymously because as U.S. Capitol Police officers, we are expected to remain neutral and do our jobs with honor and integrity. It's unfortunate that our bosses, Congress, are not held to the same standards that we, the USCP, are." So let's just be honest here, Republicans aren't interested in protecting any police officers or the rule of law or even their own colleagues. They're interested in doing whatever is necessary to continue perpetuating the big lie. Why? Because they want Trump not to seem like a loser if he announces another run for president, even though he did lose. They want to use it as a pretext to pass voter suppression laws around the country, even though Trump's own administration and members of his own party said that it was the most secure election in US history. And they want to be able to cry victim and pretend they were robbed to rile up the base before the next election. Having a January 6th commission would threaten all of those because it would bring the truth to the forefront, and the truth would threaten the house of cards that they've built on lies. And so for as much as Republicans try and rewrite history about the events of January 6th, it's our duty to push back, to set the record straight, and to call out the big lie. The election wasn't stolen, which was proven by more than 60 court cases, Bill Barr's own DOJ, the DHS, Republican governors, Republican secretaries of state, and the recounts and audits that prove the initial counts. Republicans may be hell-bent on manifesting this alternate reality, but the facts are nowhere near being on their side. And at the end of the day, the facts are the most important part of all of this. To see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe. And for a deeper dive, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I discuss the week's top stories and interview major players in the world of politics, like Vice President Kamala Harris, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.